بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I thank Him. I ask Him to send countless blessings and salutations upon the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us sincere and noble intentions. It's been a while since I've joined you in these scattered thoughts. So I wanted to, this morning, while I had more free time, to come in briefly to answer several questions, but they all surrounded around one thing, and I think it's important. In relation to how do we unify as Muslims? I think it was a very good question. And I believe that that question, though it came from several people in several different ways, so it seemed like different questions, but essentially it was the same question. Especially in our African American Black communities. Because unity is something that we need, not just as Muslims, but specifically as African American, Black, whatever term you would like to use. You know what I'm talking about. Us. We've suffered from the lack of unity as a people. And there's always been efforts to undermine our collective cooperation as a people. Prior to mass conversion to Islam in our communities, just dealing with the society and the racist structure of our country. So we've suffered a lot because we weren't able to unify like we would want to as a people. And I don't think that converting to Islam has changed that. In some ways, and it may be surprising that I may say this, in some ways it made it more difficult. In some ways, it made it more difficult. Meaning, at one point in our history as a people in America, we had a collective understanding of who the opposition was, who was trying to subjugate or harm us. That was known to many of us, and hence we could rally around that. We saw that clearly. But when many of us embraced Islam, we lost our Blackness. right? We lost the concept of us as a people. And we begin to find our dignity in other people's culture and other people's practice. But we call that other people's practice and other people's culture as Islam. I want you to follow that. So wherever we learned our understanding of Islam, we usually adopt the culture and the practices and the mannerisms of those people. And that becomes to us like Islam. We never really learned Islam well. We learned Islam through the eyes and lenses of someone else. That's probably the vast majority of us. And when I say somebody else, no matter who that somebody else is. So they don't have to necessarily be just Arabs or people from the subcontinent. It could be Africans too. And I want you to understand that. Oftentimes, we think that because we from Africa, that means all of Africa is one unified body. And that's not true, even in Africa. Africans have their own individual cultures among themselves. So which culture you adopt, which practice you adopt is going to be stipulated on where you learn from. It's not going to look the same. So if I learn in East Africa, it's not going to be the same as learning in West Africa, right? It's different. The way they practice, their understanding, their habits, their culture, it's not exactly the same. And it will be just as different as going from country to country, within one country, one continent, because there's several countries in the continent of Africa, for instance. So I'm saying that to say our unity as a people, African American, Black people, descendants of captives taken from the country of Africa, born here on the shores of America under a white racist society. That's us. And that's only us. I think sometimes we don't realize that. We are a unique, special people, unlike nobody on the planet Earth. That's real. That doesn't mean for or against necessarily, it's just a fact. We're not like you, right? And growing up in the environment, in the society we were raised in, produces a certain mentality that's unlike the mentalities of anyone else in the world. So essentially, we have become our own separate people. I want to ask you a question. I like to engage. Do y'all realize that? Give me a yes or a no. Do you realize that we are a separate people, unlike anyone else? And I'll pause to hear your answers. Hence, I see most of us, as the answers are coming in, understand that fact. Hence, anyone else that we emulate, that we follow, We're following someone else, not us. And what works for someone else may not work for you. And often it does not work for you. In fact, most of the time, if you pay attention, it works against you. Because your frame of reference is under certain circumstances, where someone else's frame of reference is on other circumstances. And you can't mix them in a way that will bring about your unity without recognizing your special circumstances and situation, and then take all of that and contextualize it within your reality. Without doing that, it's going to be a harm for you. In other words, if we learn from others, that's fine. Everyone learns from someone else. But we have to realize when we're learning for others, we have to put that in our own contextual reality, not in theirs, because it's different. It's not the same. This point needs to be understood because we have failed miserably in it. We've imported foreign cultures and ideas, put a label on it called Islam, and try to fit it in our total distinct and unique circumstances, and it has been a miserable failure. Collectively, I'm not talking individually. And if you look collectively as a people in the Islamic world, we are on a decline, not on an increase. We're on decline. Black masajid, Black institutions in Islam are crumbling all around the country. So for every success story you see, there are tens of communities being overtaken, falling apart. And as many as you see coming into the deen, there are many, 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 many more that you're not watching going out the deen. Going out the deen in two ways. In practice, that's the first thing to go. I'm not really involved. I'm Muslim, but, I'm doing my own thing. That's one aspect. And then there's another aspect of that. I'm leaving the deen altogether. I'm not a Muslim at all. So while we celebrate one thing, we better pay attention to the other thing. And you can see it if you've been around long enough. See, a lot of us, these new people, they ain't been around long enough to see it. But if you've been around, you remember when you used to talk about Islam in America, the picture you would see was an African American or a Black person. When I grew up, African American Muslim was synonymous. We were, in America, the example of Islam. Whatever it looked like to us, that was Islam to everyone else. Like now, we have Islam, what someone else say, and we make it look like that for us. That's how it used to be, right? And it would even be said like the brothers, the sisters, they meant just that. The brothers and the sisters, the Black brothers and the Black sisters, that was Islam. When I grew up, the masjid was filled with African Americans. Today, the masjids, even those same masjids, the African Americans don't even make 50% of them. The same masjid that was 100 or 99.5% African American, today don't even make up 50% of the masjid. So just from that should tell you that we have an issue that we need to address. which means something happened that broke our unity because we used to have it. So something occurred. If we were at 99%, we were the voice, collective voice of Islam in this country, and we're no longer that, and we were working together, unified in that, something happened that severed that unity, and we should discover it. I would put forth that a false sense of foreign superiority in the name of Islam, we brought into that from others. A false sense of superiority in the name of Islam from others, we brought into that. We actually believe that. To the point that our Islam became what someone else said it should be. And once we did that, we no longer saw ourselves in the picture. That's it. That's my personal observation and belief. And that is something I would stand on, and I can document it. Like, this is something that really happened. So the way to reverse that, I don't think the way to reverse that is by necessarily thinking information, which we may call knowledge, is going to change that. I think that's a state at the heart level. I think we have to get back to a saying of that James Brown type feeling. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. I think we need to get back to that. Because that type of slogan will give you pride in yourself, dignity in yourself, which is the problem here. Once you start looking at yourself as a value, then everything else will start to come together. And I think we don't value ourselves collectively. In fact, we actually think valuing ourselves is against Islam. That's deep. Someone has convinced us without even having to say it, just by feeling, just by culture, just by a false sense of superiority, made you think that it's unlawful for you to love yourself. Haram, you love yourself. No, that's deep. When Islam is the direct opposite of that. Like, it's obligatory for you to love yourself. Right? Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala said in the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ku anfusakum. Oh, you who believe, save yourselves. That means you got to recognize yourself. You can't save yourself if you don't know who you are. You can't save yourself if you don't have value for yourself. You can't. It's impossible. You don't even see yourself. How are you going to save yourself? I'll give you an example. This happened to me yesterday. I was listening to a sheikh make dua. He made dua for everyone except us. And I was saying to myself, as I was listening to the dua in the back of my computer, running back there, going crazy, I'm like, what about us? What about us? What about us? Oh, Allah, help so-and-so, help this group, help these people, help these people, help these people, remove the hardships from these people, remove the hardships from these people. Oh, Allah, give them safety, give them ease, give them. And I'm sitting there like, hey, me too. That feeling, seriously. Like, yo, we count, we exist. Come on, hey, black people over here. That feeling I had, honestly, I'm not joking. I'm laughing because that's what was going through my mind as I was listening to the dua. And he never got to us. At the end of the dua, he said, and that all the Muslims in every place. After you done named every place except our place. I said, all the Muslims in every other place. I said, well, why did you just say the rest of you guys, right? Might as well. That was the feeling. I'm not saying that was the person's intention, but I'm talking about the feeling. When you start to recognize yourself, that's just like we in a room. And you in the room, we all in the room. And I go, $5 for you, 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 $5 for you. And you sitting watching $5 be passed. It's only $5, but $5 for everybody. And you're like, hey, I'm in here too. But you notice they don't give you the $5. How do you feel? It's only $5. It's nothing. But how do you feel? Everyone was giving $5 except you. You start to feel like, what's wrong with me, right? Why I can't have $5? That's how we've been treated collectively. Worse, now at least that's overseas, so it's not that bad, right? Because they might not even see us in the scope of things. So it's kind of understandable. But that happens right here on the shores of the United States of America, in the hood, in the inner cities, in our environments where we populate the area. We are the dominant population. Right in our own place, someone won't pray for us. Won't even pray for you. And we would go to those same places and support and give and work for someone who don't care about us. And then we would apologize for even thinking that they should care about us. Astaghfirullah, it's unity, we Muslim. Okay, I'm Muslim, then why I can't get a dua? And why I can't have a $5 like everyone else? That's just something to think about, right? That's something to think about. So the unity part is not going to occur till you start to love yourself. Till you start to recognize yourself, that you do exist. You are a people and you have concerns and you have ambitions and your matters matter, right? That's important. It's extremely important. If you're going to save yourself, which is a command from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ku anfusakum wa ahlikum, and your families, save them. You got to recognize them. You're going to save someone you don't recognize. It's not going to happen. So the first thing I think for us, I'm not speaking about others. I'm talking about us, because most of us, when we say that unify, we're not talking about nobody else. We're talking about ourselves, because we don't even expect others to unify with us. We don't have that expectation. When you ask that question, you're talking about black folks. You're not talking about nobody else. And you know it, and I know it. When you say, well, we can't just unify all these groups and differences, all this, you're not talking about nobody but black folk. You're not talking about nobody else. If you be honest, who you talking about? If you took that picture in your mind and took it out, you're only talking about your own people. And you know the proof? Because the others, they disagree with each other in creed and practice, but they have a cultural and ethnic agreement. So whenever there's an issue about them, they'll come together despite their differences. But us, we won't come together for nothing. because of what someone else told us is our differences. Pay attention. Others will come together for their collective well-being despite their differences, religious, political, whatever it may be. For us as a people, collectively, we're going to come together and say, for instance, we're Arabs, and we're going to take care of the Arab cause. Or we're Desi, we're going to take care of the Desi cause. Or we're African. You notice when they say when they're African, they're not talking about you. The Africans will come together for an African cause. They're not including you because you're not African. I know that hurt. I know you, what you mean? Yeah, you got African blood in you from a long, long time ago. But you're not African. We African. We live on the continent. You American. Our long lost brother that we wish they lost. It's just real. And maybe you don't have to agree with me, but fine. I'm telling you what I see, and I'm telling you what we live, and I'm telling you what I believe we need to do to fix it. It'll change when we fix it. When we start recognizing us as a people, that whole thing gonna change. When we start to say, you know what, I know I disagree, but you know you're my brother, right? You know, we same people, we peeps. So we disagree, but we got to help our people. Do you follow my point? Because we need that for self-determination. And I think that is going to be a cause of unity. Now, we still got those issues. I'm not taking those issues out. But now the way we approach those issues, because we have genuine love for one another as a people, the issue's not going to have the same example. The same intensity. Let me give you an example of that. Most of us, before someone else drove us crazy with their stuff, you got family that are not Muslim. How many of us got family that are not Muslim? That should be almost all of us have family members that are not Muslim, right? Some are Christian, non-Muslim, whatever. They got all kinds of stuff, right? But they are family. How many of you have good relationships with them despite y'all got clearly different beliefs, different religions, different stuff going on, different culture in there, and I mean within American culture, different stuff. But that's my family, that's my cousin, that's my aunt, that's my uncle, that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my grandma, grandpa, right? So you do it. You go to the family cookout, you do whatever you do, you hang out, you kick it, and you don't make, even if y'all have debates, even debates ain't the same. Y'all could be home debating about, is Jesus God or not? That debate never turns into hatred between you. Y'all just disagree. And you still have in your mind, I'm gonna come back, can't wait till the next barbecue, we're gonna have another debate. We do it. So obviously we know how to do it. But somebody told us, as Muslims, don't do that. And each different area where we acquired told us the same thing. Hence, we never will come together to even talk, because this one told you he's your enemy, and this one told you he's your enemy. But they don't do that for themselves. They only do that for us. This ain't about someone else. This is about us. Us understanding something, right? So even though others will listen, and that's fine, but really, we're talking about what we got to do. Because if we don't get ourselves together, we can't even be a productive part of the ummah. If we don't get ourselves together as a people, we will never be a productive part of the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We'll just be the servant people, the slave people. And some people like it like that, but a good Muslim wouldn't like it like that. And we definitely, because we're going to be the victims of that, we should definitely not like it like that. So I think this is an important aspect that, and it's Islamic. It's not like I could go over and over and over and over how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized this aspect. Someone would come to him, tribes, they would come, and they're all Arabs, but they're from different tribes. So they got their own different stuff among their tribes. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would teach them. He said, go back and teach your people. And he would call them your people. Not my people, your people. He didn't say we all Arabs necessarily. He said, go teach your, because your people have a specific way. And that's your job. Go get your people. And bring them back to the ummah. But teach them so they are sound when they come. He ain't say, yo, go bring them to me so they can be. No, you go teach them, educate them. Within that context, they're going to come back and they'll be a part of the ummah. We have the same job. We have the same job. We got to go teach our people, right? And all of us, let me tell you, let me let you in on a secret. Pay attention. All of us African Americans who studied overseas, mostly all of us, have discovered this by now, right? I've been around watching. All of us realized we made a fundamental mistake when we went overseas to study. Most of us went overseas and studied to become servants and slaves of others, no matter where we went. And now, as adults, growing up, watching the result, we all realized that was a mistake. I'm going to repeat that. The vast majority of us who went overseas to study went overseas and became servants and slaves of others in the name of Islam. And as we got older and developed and matured and learned, we realized that was a mistake. We learned that was a mistake. So now you will find all of us within our own groups are saying the same thing. Saying the same thing to ourselves, but not to, like to our own little group, but not to each other, right? So we all understood. So those who went to Saudi Arabia realize you've been had. Those who went to Egypt realize you've been had. Those who went to Syria, you know, in those areas in Sham, realize you've been had. Those who went to Africa realize you've been had. And then there's a point, but we stay in our own little, the Saudi people, the Egyptian studiers, those who studied in Africa, we keep in our little group, but inside that little group, we like, man, we got to do for ourselves. That's the feeling. But they successively made us that we don't tie that knot, where we all saying, hey, we all been had, let's figure this out. What we do is we took their stuff, We realize they ain't treat us good, but we still been indoctrinated by them, and we ain't know how to fix that issue yet. So we're still mentally with them, even though physically we realize that ain't good for us. But our minds have been programmed, and we're struggling how to deprogram that mind to actually feel that it's okay to recognize that we ain't been done right. That's a challenge. And that's why we won't work. You know, I ain't listening to them, but I ain't messing with that deviant over there. I ain't even talking to that deviant, not realizing the fact that I don't talk to you because I got it from them. They told me that. While they talking to the deviant in their own culture, in their own ethnicity, they doing all kinds of things together. They ain't tearing their society up. But us, our little societies we have, we destroy them, families and everything, with their stuff. This is important to understand. It's very important. Now, how to do that is the challenge. Because the programming is very deep. Because the programming has become a religious conviction. The programming has become, for us, a religious conviction. That we actually believe their programming is Islam. And it is our salvation. That's some deep stuff when you think about it. Their programming for us has become Islam. It is our religious conviction. We don't see it as a program. We don't see it as an agenda. We see it as Islam. And Islam is my salvation. Follow the steps. It's really programming. It's really manipulation of Islam. But we see it as Islam. That's what they told us it was. So we didn't critically think to what was going on. We just took it as Islam because we're looking for salvation. And they gave us that. So for us, that programming, that agenda is the essence of the truth from God, from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's Islam. And we hold on to it like that. So for us, even to challenge that programming, to us is actually challenging Islam because of the programming. That's how we think. And we can see it clearly, but because we believe it's Islam, we won't even question what we see right in front of us. We won't see it. It'll happen. It'll just be like, that's deep programming. Deep programming. So to overcome that, we have to first essentially say, I love my people. That love is going to help you see yourself as a person of value, as a people of value that has some substance, You're going to see yourself like a count. So in the dua, you will hope breaks. You might get enough guts to say next time you make dua, make sure you mention African-American Muslims in America who got their own struggle. Mention them specifically. They are specific people. They have their own struggles. They have their own challenges. It's been going on for hundreds of years. Please, when you specifically mention everybody else, specifically mention them. You say that to the imam, to the khatib, to the sheikh. When we're having a gathering, ho, stop, sheikh, salam alaikum. Maybe I'll say it privately on the side. Yo, Sayyidi, please mention black people in America. There's Muslims among them, a lot. and they actually do da'wah, and they actually have communities, and they've been there for over 100 years, and hundreds of years, their religion was stripped, they're regaining it, they're fighting the enemy, the same enemy you talking about, they're fighting on the ground every day in all kinds of ways that you're not. Please make dua for them. Ask Allah to relieve them. Ask Allah to stop their suffering. Ask Allah to give them success over their enemies. Ask Allah for them specifically, like you specifically mentioned everybody else. Now, I want to ask y'all a question. Be honest. How many of y'all just heard me say that and felt like, what is he going to say that? Yeah, I'm going to say that. And why can't you? How many of us felt like, oh, that's bad adab, right? Be honest. How many of us had that feeling? It's not bad adab to forget us, but it's bad adab for us to remind you not to forget us. Think about that. Think about the programming. In your mind, you, to mention yourself, felt that there was something wrong with that. You didn't see it was wrong him to forget you, but you felt wrong to remind him, don't forget me. You felt like, should I do that? Yeah, you should. Maybe he forgot. Maybe it ain't even crossed his mind. And once you tell him, he'd be like, yeah, you're right. In fact, now you be the first one at the dua. He skipped everyone else and put you at the first beginning of the line. That's restorative justice. It's going to put us first. All right, put us first. When you make dua, I'm going to be on your back so much that you can't forget us. We first. Right? And you'll start changing things. They'll start looking at you different because they hear about you now. They see you. Right? They see you. They see you. So I believe that's number one. Because we Muslim, right? That ain't the issue. We believe in Allah and his messenger, even if we disagree. We believe, right? So that ain't fixing it. But we hate ourselves. And I think that's the problem. We were taught to hate ourselves. So we're coming around. Next month, we're going to have the Malcolm X gathering in Atlantic City. Let me put the flyer up real quick just for promo purposes. We're going to have this gathering. And in Atlantic City, let me put the register while I'm at it. Yeah, because I got to remind y'all. This on the anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X, we're going to start. This will be the first of our yearly gatherings in person to talk about the legacy of Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz and where we're going with it. So there's let me put it. There's the link for the registration. So it's February 21st and 22nd, Friday and Saturday. But if you remember, among his speeches, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, he said, who taught you to hate yourself? Y'all remember that line? How many of you remember that line? Who taught you to hate yourself? We should answer that question. Here we are, 60 years later from the assassination of Malcolm X, and we still hate ourselves. And we didn't answer that question. Who taught you to hate yourself? That's deep. 60 years later, we still got to ask that question. It's still a relevant question. 60 years later. It is just as relevant, if not more relevant, than the time he said it. Who taught you to hate yourself? And what's more impactful about that statement is that we feel that religiously it's noble and honorable and rewardable and closer to the sunnah to hate us. I ain't black, I'm Muslim. You ever heard anyone else say some stupid stuff like that? I ain't black, I'm Muslim. I ain't Arab, I'm Muslim. I ain't Pakistani, I'm Muslim. I'm not Asian, I'm not African, I'm not European, I'm Muslim. You ever heard somebody say, think about it. You ever heard someone say that? No, never. And if they did say something in their culture, that's like cultural apostasy. No one would accept. But for us, you hear people talking like that. When you think about it, man, a number's been played on us. A big number's been played on us. So there's this aspect of developing love. And listen, loving yourself doesn't mean you hate others. Nor should it lead to that. Loving yourself doesn't mean you hate others. Nor should it lead to that. In fact, it should be the opposite. If you love yourself and the others love themselves, we'll learn the importance of loving each other. If you love yourself and others love themselves, we collectively will learn the importance of loving each other as human beings. There's steps to this, right? I remember in my younger days, we used to have like a code. We was on black time. I won't hurt another black person. I won't do that. We should make a covenant like that. I will never hurt another black person. That doesn't mean I'm gonna hurt no one else, but specifically, I'm aiming at training my mind and my heart. I'm never gonna hurt a black person. I can't do it. I love my people. I can't do that. Right? If you have that feeling that I'm not going to harm my people, and you learn to love your people, you have something in you that says you're not going to harm. And since it's easy to harm the weak and the underserved, that's why it's so easy for black people to harm black people, because black people are on the earth the least protected of all humans. No one's protecting you. And a lot of us will look at the fact that no bombs is being dropped on you. Bombs is being dropped on you every day. I don't need to drop bombs if I control your mind and spirit. All of the bombs that's dropped on you, once I take your mind and your spirit, there's no need. You're going to follow. Isn't that what we do? We just follow to our own destruction. To our own destruction. There's no need for a bomb. There's no need to hang you. For what? I only got to hang you. I only got to shoot you when you start thinking of yourself again. Then I gotta put you back in your place and make you afraid to think for yourself. But so long as you don't think for yourself, so long as you go along with my program, why do I gotta harm you? I control you. You can't think except like you think like your enemy. You can't function except you function like your enemy. You have the mindset of your oppressor. That's how you think. He don't need to do nothing else. He owns you. He only got to do that to people he don't own, who have some self-worth, some self-value, some self-determination, and don't go with his program, then he got to crush him. He already crushed you. He don't have to do that. You're already crushed. So actually, you're worse off than the one he's dropping bombs on. Because the one he's dropping bombs on still has self-determination. The one he don't got to do anything has lost all sense of self-determination. All you got to do is turn on the TV and watch us on a video. Turn on your YouTube, pick up your phone, open up YouTube, open up Facebook, open up TikTok or Twitter or whatever that crap is. Any of that and watch us. He got us. We don't need to, why am I dropping a bomb on you? You're the fuel in my engine. For what? That's dumb to fight you. I don't have to. You don't even want to fight. You don't even want to stand up for yourself. I don't have to do that. Only time I got to do that when you forget that I'm your master. And then I got to, now you, and I think that fear for us is why, was one of the reasons why we don't come together. Man, you know what they did to Malcolm. You know what they did to Martin Luther King. You know. So watch yourself, Negro. Don't get too, that's us. I've had it said to me. And we ain't even doing nothing. Yo, man, you better watch yourself, man. You be talking a little bit too tough. I ain't even say nothing. But that's our mindset. You know what they'll do to you. And guess what? They're not even talking about the man. They're talking about us. They're not talking about Mr. Charlie. You know what we'll do. No, they're talking about us to each other. That's deep. They're not talking about Mr. Charlie when they say watch yourself. They talking about watch yourself from your own people. They're going to hurt you. Don't worry about Mr. Charlie. Worry about us. We'll hurt you. Wow. That's us, really? So that thing we got to overcome. And I know it's not popular. Seriously, it's not. I understand that. It's not popular to have self-determination among us. But I believe from the bottom of my heart that that is a main element of us overcoming the diseases of the heart, and then all of the outward manifestations of ill behavior and ill speech and everything that comes with that. The main key is that we start learning to love one another. And be happy about it. Be intentional about it. Even if I disagree with you, I still love you. You're my brother and sister. We share a bond that's never going to be separated because we're going to be people. And we just got to work out the other stuff. And whatever it takes, we're going to work that out. But we have a covenant of, I'm not going to hurt you. I care about you. I'm going to see, to the best of my ability, your empowerment. If we can get there, the other things we can slowly work out. Because once we get other people's ideas out of our minds, we can start thinking better. You can think clearly, right? But long as someone else is controlling your mind, and then those ideas become realities and eternal truths for you, that's seeped in your heart, and now you're done. You finish. You can't function because you're convinced of the lies that you've been told. So even when you see them, you scared to challenge them because now it's like, this is religion. This is Islam. Nah, that's propaganda. Did y'all realize this? We go overseas. I want to share something with you. We go overseas every year. Some of us making Umrah, Hajj, right? And we never say, most of us, what would have this looked like 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago, 600 years? Like, we're in an environment and we're looking at things, the way it's set up. I mean, like, we ain't even thinking that deep. But anyway, the culture, the society, the beliefs, the systems, the education, the economics. We never say, what did this place look like just 300 years ago? Was it the same? If I did the same pilgrimage 300 years ago, what would have been different? How many of you have asked yourself that question? 300, 400, let's say 400 years ago. When you went to Mecca and Medina and you going to Saudi Arabia, how many of you have made that trip and said, what would this have been like 400 years ago in every aspect of the society? Have you ever thought about that? That's a question. I think about it all the time, right? But have you ever thought about that? And not only that, what would have been the impact of that experience in your life right now? So if it's that culture, that whole environment was 400 years ago when you go to Arabia, for instance, how would that have impacted you on the ground in your reality? It would look totally different. Totally different. You wouldn't even think the same. You have a whole different experience than what you have today. Religiously, you would think different. Spiritually, you would think different. Economically, you would think different. Everything would be totally different. Your whole worldview would be different. So when you think of Malcolm X making his pilgrimage to Mecca, had he made that in a different time, it would have been a whole different picture. Even the mindset that was produced out of it would have been different. Critical thinking necessitates that we look at the world globally and historically and take that global and historical look and contextualize it in our present day reality. There's a lot of things a lot of beneficial things that would come out of such a mindset. I'll give you an example. If you went to Mecca and Medina just 300 years ago, all of you would be Sufis. All of you would be Sufis. 300 years ago, it would have been impossible to go to Mecca and Medina and not be influenced by Sufi tradition. It would have been impossible. Ain't that deep? Now think of that in terms of today. People go over there and you get the bid'ah police is all over the place. It's set up to avoid spirituality. And you go there and that, with all that stuff, and you're like, I felt so spiritually strong. Imagine what you would feel like if none of that existed. And 300 years ago, none of that existed. You would have been floating in the heavens in spirituality, just because the difference of time and control and subjugation of people. You understand that? That would have been the norm. And honestly, myself, as I think about it, I'm like, wow. And we've seen this. If we would have came to America 300, 400 years ago, it would have been totally different. I'm talking about in what you observed in the land. And it's changed so much with oppression and subjugation of people, annihilation of people, to you don't even see what America would have looked like, what it was like prior to invaders. And most of us don't even think about it. What was this place like before all these invaders came? Right? That's the historic outlook of things. And sometimes it's extremely beneficial to understand that. I remember being in the courtyard of the Prophet's Mosque with one of my teachers. He was kind of brave, like extremely brave, right? We would, after Asr, we would do our weird loud in the courtyard of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like every day, loud, right? And you know, you got the security walking around and making sure nobody's doing something. He wouldn't stop. He didn't care. And I was like, man, they're gonna lock him up. Like, it's just bugging. And I asked him one day, I'm like, you don't never be nervous they're gonna put you in jail? He said, we got this from our grandfather. He's a descendant of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He said, and no one can change history. I was like, deep. What I understood from that is if you know history, then you feel safe because you know that Allah will always protect his people. Even if you go through hardship, right? Allah will always protect his people. You know, these are my scattered thoughts, so they go all over the place. But bringing it back in, because I'm getting ready to drift. Let me get back, right? Because I want to see those days, especially in our community, when we rediscover what Islam was before the propaganda, before all the programming, before all that stuff, and then see how that looks in our communities, right? Because the biggest stealing from us in Islam that has happened to us is they stole tasawwuf from us, Sufism. All of those matters of spirituality, they took it in the name of Islam. And it made us, our hearts wax cold. And that's why we can't love each other. The whole sense of spiritual empowerment and reform wiped out of the whole concept of the religion. And part of that is love. Part of that is love. May Allah make it easy for us. Insha'Allah ta'ala. That is my scattered thought. I'll continue. I have other things about this unity, but let's start there. Make a covenant to love one another, right? Restore that feeling in the Black community. When they saw Muslims, they saw people who loved them. Non-Muslims. That's why a lot of people embraced Islam, because of what they thought, even if it had bad Aqidah and ideas, we can work on that, right? But in our communities, when people saw Muslims, they felt love from us. They felt like these are my people. I ain't even a Muslim, but they my people. Muslim people, man, that's right. They for us. Yeah, we should restore that in our communities. We should restore that spirit. I believe that's a big step. So each and every one of us developing yourself a serious love for your people. Even the one who's not African American, love your people. Have a love and a concern for your people. And the next step is that love should transfer to humanity. But you got to start at home first. And that's your people. Have a love, right, for your people. And then by extension, that will be a love for humanity. But take step one. And if you already got step one, then you go ahead and take step two. But for us, specifically, we need step one. We need step one. We have to see each other like that. Because if we see one another like that, those differences, they go away. Even though they're there, they don't become barriers. Right? And I know this ain't popular talk. I got it. You know, it ain't. But alhamdulillah, we need it. And if you start really thinking about your children and grandchildren in the world they're growing up in, you'll realize how important it is. I know every time I look at my children, I look at my grandchild, I say, man, I got to do something. They can't grow up in this mess. And it ain't run. That ain't my solution. They run somewhere else so they can be slaves somewhere else. This is the best place they got to make a change, because they actually can have some empowerment. The resources are there if they use them. Everyone else is coming here to build their stuff, and we're right here and can't build our stuff. That don't make no sense. Everyone in the world comes here to build their stuff. We're right here and refuse to build our stuff. That doesn't make any sense for a person of intelligence. You're running to someone who's running to where you're running from. Think about that. You're running to a people who's running to the place you're running from. What's wrong with you? That's deep. Mean Allah love you so much, he put you in the possession of where everyone is coming to you, and you leaving where he put you to go where other people's coming. Go to the people coming to you. That's foolish. And then those people come to where you're at, master it, and get control over you. Ooh, we deep. They come master where you at and get control over you. Wow. That's something to think about. If that ain't a slave, I don't know what is. If that ain't a slave, I don't know what is. So this is my reminder. And our gathering, Malcolm X, Legacy in Action. That means we got to do something. Malcolm X's enduring relevance. We have to still do that work. In fact, it's even harder now. I don't like politics. I don't want to be president. I want you to be president. I'll help you. I don't want to be president. I'll help you, though. Do the right stuff. I support your campaign. Inshallah. So inshallah, we'll see y'all later on. I know I made a promise to y'all. Inshallah, I'm going to fulfill it. I'm just trying to, I'm busy a lot. But I got you covered, inshallah. We're gonna do our reading, we're gonna do our books. You know, I got you covered. Inshallah ta'ala. I'm just working it all out. But let me say I love you all. Really. And we need to say that. Sometimes you need to talk yourself into doing something. I really love you. I do. And it is the most important thing in my life in terms of an action is to help my people love one another. We need a big group hug bad, right? We do. And we should get it. It's not, you know, it's not haram. Oh, Fatima, pause. Right? Pause. Where's my pause thing? Pause. All right, barakallahu bikum. May Allah reward you all. May Allah increase you. Inshallah, I'll see you soon. Maybe tonight or tomorrow we'll have another talk and I can continue. Because I have a long finger with this, but it's going to take time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Have a good Jumu'ah. Read Surah Kahf if you can. Make plenty of salah ala Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It will be a source of empowerment for you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.